What is up, y'all? Welcome to another video. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day or night, depending what time of the day you're watching this video. So welcome to part 3 of the ultimate BMW S63 rebuild series. So just to recap on the last few videos, we diagnosed what was wrong with the engine. We just had that annoying ticking sound, and we had a light on the dashboard that said there was a misfire on the engine, but the engine was running relatively smoothly. There was no misfire. It was just the really loud bang that was coming from the engine. It was a really scary sound. So on the last few videos, we've diagnosed the problem. We found out that was a rod bearing issue. The rod bearings were gone, and they decided to take the crankshaft and the rods along with it. So we also went ahead and took the engine out of the car. We took the heart of the beast out of the car, and then we took it into 1,000 pieces, because in order to be able to access the crankshaft and change that, we need to take everything out and disassemble the entire engine completely. And that is what we did, little by little, piece by piece, and everything went relatively smoothly. The only problem is we came across an issue where the main bolt to the crankshaft is held in there so tight that I actually had to take the block with the crankshaft to the machine shop for them to have it, you know, professionally removed from the engine. Now, in today's video, we're gonna move things a little bit further along, but before we go into today's video, I want to take a moment to appreciate you guys for watching the series, following along. I hope you guys are learning something new. I hope you guys are enjoying the video, but thank you for showing love and support by subscribing to the channel, and also submitting your comments. So I want to take a moment to actually read a few of the last comments in the last video. There weren't many, but you know, it doesn't matter. I really want to take some time to show some appreciation for you guys. So the very first comment comes from Bullet's Garage. I'm so inspired by you doing this on your own. I will be doing this alone if my engine takes a poop. Hopefully not anytime soon. Keep up the videos coming. Thank you. I really appreciate it, my friend. And hopefully not. You know, this issue, it's fairly common, but there's a lot of cars that I know personally, well over 100,000 miles, even with the tune on it, that really never had this issue. So most likely you will never have to come across a problem like this. But if everyone that I talk to, every M5 owner I talk to, I always recommend, hey, if you do have the ability to go ahead and do a service on your rod bearings, I highly recommend it for you to do it before it causes any issues. But thanks again. I really appreciate you leaving a comment, and yes, I will definitely do my best to find time here and there to keep you guys updated. It's not a huge topic, as you can see. Not many people are following along, but I do have a few people here and there that actually watch these videos and comment, so that is enough for me to continue to create some of these videos. I see here Noel, I'm not gonna be able to pronounce this, but he or she said, bro, that's a Mercedes S63 engine or another engine called the X63. So yeah, so Mercedes does have, I believe they do have a vehicle called the S63, but the S63 is an engine code for BMW. I believe the way BMW goes about numbering their engines, the S stands for the performance M variant of their engines. For example, you had the N55, which is inline 6, and you have the S65, which is an inline 6 for the M cars, and then you have the N63, which is a twin turbo V8, and you also have the S63, which is the M specific variant of the N63, which, you know, basically is kind of the same block, but of course you do have some M performance mods in there in the tune to make it worthy for the M cars. And it was launched, I don't want to say exactly the date, because I do know there's a few variants of it right now. The my cars and some M cars, some M5s came along with the S63 TU, but the S63 is still being used until this very day. Even on this outgoing model of the M5, you have the M5 F90, you have the M5 Competition, and then you have the M5 CS, which all have a different variant of the S63. And I believe the new hybrid M5 that's coming out still uses a 4.4 liter V8 combined with the hybrid system. And I believe that might be a variant of the S63, but I believe it's also a little bit early to tell. But again, guys, thank you so much for the love and appreciation. And let's move along to today's video. So on today's video, what we're going to do is we actually have taken the time to take apart the engine. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be taking my engine to a professional machine shop to have my engine professionally serviced and clean every single surface, because there's a lot of holes in there, a lot of channels for the coolant, a lot of channels for the oil. I want to have all of that professionally cleaned, and also have the surfaces professionally surfaced to have for us to install new gaskets in there. So we're gonna have I'm gonna take my engine heads to be resurfaced, my blocks to be resurfaced, to make sure that when we do put the head gaskets and timing chain gaskets, to make sure that everything is running smoothly. There's a contact surface brand new to make sure there's no leaks. We definitely don't want that. And also we're going to make sure that we take some measurements of the blocks to make sure that everything is up to spec. Now I believe that the part that really took a beating from this whole thing was the crankshaft and the rods, but you can never be too careful when it comes to these things. The last thing we want to do is spend all this time and money and put the engine back together just to have it blow up in our faces. Okay, we definitely don't want that. So we're gonna take this opportunity to make sure that we do everything right. So essentially, we're gonna take the engine for a spa day. It's gonna be cleaned and resurfaced and make sure that everything is up to spec. Okay, so that's exactly what I did. In fact, I went ahead and did that a few weeks ago, and we actually got the engine back and everything was smooth, everything was up to spec.
That thing looks clean, man.
Yeah. Out of the block.
Sweet.
Head dowels, and then the bolts for this rear plate, and then these two brackets that were on the heads. Pretty well.
Nice. Oh, that's brand spanking new.
Yeah.
Now, I really want to take my time to give a huge shout out to the machine shop here. They did an amazing job. They were very, very on time, and they also took their time to educate me on a lot of things that I needed to know, because I'm not an engine builder for sure. I'm not a mechanic for sure. I'm just a car enthusiast, and I decided to do this by myself, but I've never really built an engine before. So to go from not building any engines in the past to jumping on an S63, which is one of the most complicated engines out there, it is definitely a huge step. So I definitely had to make sure that I had the right people around me to educate me on the few things that, you know, I honestly didn't know anything about. So I've actually talked to a few of them. They're BMW enthusiasts, and they actually recommended me to, hey, also make sure that you rebuild your oil pump, because you want to make sure, because a problem like this is very tricky, because you're gonna have metal shavings all everywhere. That's why I had to take everything out. I had to clean every single surface, every single hole inside the engine, because I don't want to have any metal shavings residue somewhere in the engine, build the engine again, and have that metal shaving be picked up and then end up in the rods again, because there's a very, 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 very fine tolerances in there. So now that we have the engine together, or we have the parts back, what I decided to do is actually rebuild the heads little by little. Before I rebuilt anything, I actually took the time to clean the valves, because they have been through a lot. can see here, it's pitch black. There's a lot of carbon built up in there from the high temperatures and the oil. So I had to make sure I get rid of all that nasty stuff, and at the end, you know, we're gonna have what essentially looks like a brand new engine going back together. Is going to be breathing very, very well. It's going to moving air through the engine very, very well. So I made sure to clean the intake ports and also clean the exhaust ports, make sure there's nothing left in there, and also did a valve stem job or a valve seat job to make sure that there is where the lap or where the valve seats with the heads, make sure to clean that out, make sure it has a smooth surface. There's some really good videos in here that talks you through specifically how to clean the valves, how to essentially what I had to do was grind the compounds to make sure that there's a smooth, even seating between the valves and the heads. That way there will be no leaks inside of my engine head and inside of the cylinder, because it was looking really bad. And it's one of the things with the new direct injected engines, because where the fuel injectors are placed is not really doing a good job cleaning out the engine like the port injected engines do. So you end up with this old residue and this clunk in there that over time kills your horsepower and kills your efficiency. So I definitely had to make sure that was clean. Also, I took the opportunity to change the infamous valve stem seals. As you know, BMW S63 engines and S63 engines are known for having really bad valve stem seals over time, because the way these engines are designed, you have the turbo sitting in between the two banks, which is great for power. There's virtually no turbo lags because the turbos are right there, right next to exhaust. But because of that, the heat that this engine produces is tremendous. So that, I believe, contributes to a early tear and wear of the valve stem seal. So after I have the valve seats completely clean and smooth, I have the valves cleaned, and I have the new seals in there, it was time for me to put everything back the exact same way that it was taken out in the first place. And I noticed something interesting here. I noticed that the lifters that the where the rocker that actually pushes the valves in and out, some of them were actually nice and springy and smooth. If you press on it, you can actually see that it was being pushed down, but others were rock solid. They didn't move at all. And I actually did some research about this. I didn't find that much information online, so what I decided to do is I actually took them apart, and I realized that there's a small spring in there, and there's an oil supposed to go in there and act sort of as in a hydraulic lifter. And over time, I guess these things also get clogged with dirt and oil, and they end up just being really like a rock. So I made sure that I just took them apart. You can see there's a small bearing in there that gets filled with oil. I took them apart. I made sure to give them a really nice clean, put them back in there, and now they're nice and soft. That way the engine runs buttery smooth at the end. So after that was done, we just had to put together the springs in there, make sure that they were assembled the correct way, and also this way start putting together the intake and the exhaust camshafts. Now, after all this is done, the intake and exhaust is not as easy as other engines, because BMW are known for having the variable timing, where I believe the intake will vary to let more air or less air into the engine. That way you can produce that high horsepower and also still have some efficiency, depending on if you are on comfort and efficient mode, sport mode, or sport plus. That means that we need a special tool to put that together, so we had to make sure that we put everything, the intake and exhaust camshafts, back together just the way they came out. Now, probably not going to address it on this specific video, but with that being said, eventually down the pipeline, we're going to time the engine. We have to make sure that we time the engine correctly, because as you know, if it is off by just a few millimeters or a few degrees, then that's a potential problem, because you want, again, you don't want to put everything back together and having the engine blow up because the valves are hitting the pistons because the timing is off. And as you know, in traditional BMW fashion, you need a special tool to time the S63. Now, the nice thing about this is there are some special tools that are shared between the N63 and the S63, but unfortunately this is not one of them. So there is a special tool required just to time the S63 engine specifically, which is different from the N63, and you betcha it is not a cheap tool. So we have to order that and make sure that it comes here. So yeah, that's where we are so far. Again, I don't want to make this video too long, so on the next video we're going to talk about actually assembling the bottom end of the engine. I'm waiting for a few specific parts because I'm going to need a part to where once I'm going to need to measure the clearance between the rods, the clearance between the rod bearings and the crankshaft to make sure they're up within specs. Now I made sure to order the best part for this, so the clearance should be good to go, but I'm gonna have to measure it just to make sure that everything is good to go. And I'm also going to need a special tool to make sure that once I put the crankshaft, the bottom end together, I'm gonna have to tie everything together and make sure that the torque that I use to rotate the crankshaft while it's free, while it has no other friction, it has to be at specific newton meters. So there's a special device that I need to measure that one in there. So by the time I edit this video, maybe I can put the device in there so you can actually see what I'm talking about. With that being said, we're also going to need some special tools to be able to assemble the engine back together. We're also going to need a bunch of new bolts. They're brand new. The bolts that actually holds the crankshaft, those are torque bolts, meaning that once you take them out, you cannot put them back in. You're gonna have to tie them in, and you're gonna have to tie them to a specific sequence and specific newton meters, and then you're gonna have to then torque it again to a specific degree, so they can only be used once. And the same thing for the heads, but more on that on the next video. So I want to make sure that I have all the tools together, and I also want to make sure that I share all the numbers and exactly how to tie that in. Not that you're probably going to tie your bottom end next week, but just in case, it doesn't hurt to know. Okay, well, again guys, thank you so much for watching this series. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and you stay tuned for the next video as we build the S63, and hopefully when we put everything together, and hopefully when we crank the engine for the first time, nothing blows up in our faces. All right, again, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.